Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you start off by saying a few words about yourself?
Sure. I am a homeschooling mom. We have 7 kids and we live in upstate New York.
That's awesome. And I was wondering if you knew that NASA planned to send astronauts back to the moon.
I knew because of you.
I get that quite a lot, actually. I think
Yeah.
about 80% of the people I interview, even around here near Johnson Space Center, have no clue that we're going back to the moon. I was wondering if you might speculate on why that is.
Um, I think government agencies are inefficient and probably don't do as good of a job, with the things like social media and probably haven't adapted to new ways of communicating with people. You have, Elon Musk on X spouting off all the time, but NASA doesn't. So I think there's just a lack of communication there. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I guess if you were at NASA trying to get more people aware of it, what are some things that you would do? Is it just a matter of posting more, or is there other specific things?
Yeah, I think, kind of the same strategies that you would have during an election, right? Like doing videos, interviewing people, going on podcasts, doing more social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, right? Like the media shifted so much away from kind of the mainstream sources, but I don't even know if they're on those. But yeah, I think showing them building whatever they're building or the behind the scenes looks, that kind of stuff, I think is what reaches younger audiences.
I think it's amazing though. Those platforms are extremely effective about filtering content to just like your own little interests. I mean, like I don't see stuff about baseball on mine, but I do see a lot about stuff about NASA, and
Right, right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's where going on podcasts that, or like partnering with other social, right? Like you have to kind of go outside of your bubble and think, okay, who's somebody who has a different audience that I could go partner with, or, right? Like the politicians that get elected are the ones that get on podcasts that help them reach new audiences, right? Or, if there's a way to kind of break that, it's not a glass ceiling, but that same concept of, breaking out of your echo chamber, I guess.
yeah, that makes sense. Like maybe going on a baseball podcast
Yeah,
is
right.
stronger in NASA.
See if you can reach those people somehow.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. Well, what do you think about us going back to the moon?
Um, I know that a lot of people feel that it's like important for research and space exploration, and I guess I don't know enough about what the goals are. There's part of me that feels like space exploration is maybe not the best appropriation of funds, but I totally understand why it's important also, because it serves other purposes that I'm probably not super aware of, like satellites providing internet to remote parts of the world is kind of a more practical application of that arena. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
there are probably practical applications I don't know about. It seems like a lot of money to spend, but I don't know what the goals are. Like I don't know what I'm curious, like what is the point? What is the top 5 reasons that they're going back to the moon?
Um, I think, the official story is to go and go and explore more about the moon. One is since the last time we went to the moon, we found out that there's these permanently shadowed craters near the poles where there appears to be deposits like water ice, and so kind of want to see if that's true. To learn what the moon could teach us about the volume of space that the Earth travels in. So, for example, we're constantly being impacted by meteors, but most of them burn up in the atmosphere. The ones that don't burn in the atmosphere, most of them land in the ocean just because of
Mm-hmm.
the surface area is two-thirds water. Those that land on land, over a few years, they get weathered away, vegetation grows over them. And so if you look at the moon, you see lots and lots of craters. Well, more than that has been coming towards Earth just because of Earth is a bigger target. But um, the moon's like, since it has no atmosphere, no vegetation, no weather, um, it's like a library of sort of all those types of events that the Earth has been going through. So from that standpoint, we could learn, you know, is there a big set of material that every 10,000 years intersects the Earth's orbit that maybe we should know about, and we can like analyze those materials and see. Also, on top of that, rare earth metals are important, and all those come from meteorites. And so there might be deposits there that could be useful because the ones that we know about on Earth are like in China and Africa, and not easy places to uh, get access to, and easy for other people to limit our ability to access. So that, and then also a proving ground to go further to Mars, which raises its own questions. Depending upon how you feel about space exploration.
Yeah. I do follow Elon Musk, and so I have some sense of his perspective on going to Mars. And it almost seems like a religious goal for him that he's somehow trying to kind of create a way to be immortal, that humanity will be extinct if we stay on Earth, and so we have to be a spacefaring. I mean, I think he's just straight up said that we have to
Mhm.
be spacefaring in order for our species to live forever, kind of thing. It's a interesting perspective. I think NASA probably has a different take on that, but uh, I wonder about spending that long in space, and the risk of returning. Uh, I thought The Martian was actually a really interesting movie about that, kind of brought up some of the issues that you might face during a journey like that. I think it did a good job being relatively realistic. It'll be interesting to see what kind of actual problems arise.
And indeed, and the fact you have like these humans so far away from anybody on Earth being able to help them
Yeah.
means they'll need to be very self-sufficient.
Right. Well, and self-sufficient with what? I mean, it's one thing to be self-sufficient on Earth when you have resources. But if you watch like the flooding in North Carolina, if everything is flooded, you don't have resources, eh, right? Like land is kind of your ultimate resource. And if you don't have that, how do you be resourceful if you don't have anything, right? Or if all you have is this spaceship, or yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's a good
well,
point. I mean, I think about redundancy, adaptability, the ability to like take material and retransform it for different purposes. Like 3D printing is kind of like the beginnings of that, of being able to take the plastics and melt them down and turn them into other things that you may not have known you needed based upon the
yeah,
circumstances. So that type of thing.
right. I think it's interesting that you have people clamoring to go on things like that, and that it's highly competitive, because I cannot think of anything I would rather do less than go to Mars. Like I,
Well, honestly, my analysis of that phenomenon is that these people are more interested in having had gone to Mars and what it
uh,
might do to their kind of social standing back here on Earth, as opposed to the actual Martian experience itself.
yeah, that would be logical, though you think that the risk might not be worth that.
Yeah, and maybe these people just want to be selected to go to Mars. Then you
Yeah,
get kind of like the social standing of, hey, I am highly competitive as a group, but I didn't have the risk.
right. I got into Harvard, but I didn't go.
Exactly. I could have done it if I wanted
I
to.
turned them down. Yeah.
Um, but thinking about that, when you think about the future of humanity, do you see us as a starfaring civilization expanding out to the rest of the universe, or do you think we're pretty much limited here to Earth, just doing these little short trips?
It seems to me, based on the limited amount of information that I have listening to my husband talk about some of the issues with all of this, is that the technology that we would need to develop would have to be pretty advanced to get over the obstacles that we know about. And I guess that would be my question. So right now, no. But if there's technology we could develop that I can't, can't even be conceived of, then I guess I could see it. But you talk about traveling at the speed of light and what that might do to our bodies, if it's even possible. And then you're talking about, 100 million light years away. I guess I just don't see, I guess you'd have to have traveling planets basically.
Hmm.
And why? I don't once we were having a conversation about terraforming some planet, and Jason, my husband, said it would be easier and cheaper to terraform Earth. And I thought that that was kind of an interesting point, that if Earth became uninhabitable for some reason, you might still be better off developing that kind of same technology for Earth than trying to colonize Pluto. Or I don't even know what it would look like. I definitely think from where we are right now, it seems impossible. But I mean, people thought that doors that open automatically were impossible. And we were told growing up that we wouldn't be walking around with a calculator in our pockets. So I think it's difficult to anticipate technology that'll develop. But also, like, we thought that we would be able to teleport, and that proves to be pretty difficult. So some of the problems seem like that to me, where you almost seem limited by physics itself and not by technology. And I guess that's kind of the ultimate question, is what is the upper limit of physics and what physics allows us to do.
No, that's a good question. And I think that's a very good point about if something bad were to happen to Earth, it'd be easier to fix Earth. Yeah, I mean, you hear that so much, like we need to go to another planet because we're ruining Earth, which is like, if you had any idea about the other options available, you realize how impractical that is. Like,
Yeah.
you would have to live inside of habitats and all these other places. Just build those habitats on Earth and have people walk into them. It's much
Yeah.
easier than putting them on rockets to go to other places.
I mean, just the atmosphere alone is, and the temperature, right? I mean, those are probably the top two issues, right? Atmosphere and temperature.
Hmm.
And you look at all of the, I would argue fine tuning related to Earth that make it habitable. That if you are just 1 degree off on the axis, if you're just a little bit further away from the sun, a little bit closer to the sun, if there's a little bit less water, if there's a little bit more water, if there's less frozen water, if there's less, if water can't be liquid, solid, and a gas, if you don't have the moon, if you don't have Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus, and Neptune catching all the giant asteroids, and I'm probably using wrong terminology, but they they absorb so much impact, right? And then the moon absorbs other impact. And so then the actual space rocks that you end up with flying into Earth while they're still high, like you said at the beginning, cause such minimal damage, in large part because of the four gas giants that are absorbing most of it. So even if you find some planet that's the right distance from the right kind of sun, like how far away is it? How long would it take to travel there? Does it have the same kind of atmosphere? Does it have the same kind of moon? Does it, like, there's so many things. I don't, it seems impossible.
No, definitely. But I mean, definitely huge technological things to overcome in order to even think about it. I mean, do we even try to send people in the sense of people, or do we just send sort of like an ecology starter kit that eventually develops into a civilization?
Here's a box of grass. Have fun.
Yeah,
Hope it grows.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but I guess more in the question of, do you think it's worthwhile for humanity to contemplate those type of concepts, like, um, just kind of setting aside the practicality and the technical difficulties? Um, do you think like the universe exists for humans to go and expand in it, or do you think? I mean, it seems like a non-living universe is really uninteresting, and since we only know that life exists here on Earth, do you think there's like some type of compulsion we should have to kind of spread that life throughout the rest of the universe.
I
Kind of
mean,
like turn, yeah.
to me, that kind of seeps into religious questions because I think it kind of gets at what does it mean to be human and how are we wired? And I think people are wired to be curious and have consciousness and have different questions than animals have, right? That's what makes us distinct from them. And so the fact that we have the questions, that we're curious about it, and that we want to explore, I mean, exploration is really kind of almost hardwired into us. Like you look, like my 1.5 year old right now wants to go explore the bathroom and he really wants the toilet brush and he wants to, rub it on things and see what happens. And, you look at Dr. Livingston and crossing the Sahara to go explore sub-Saharan Africa and the people that expanded westward. And like there's this kind of element of exploration, people wanting to explore the deep sea floor. And I think that's kind of an extension of that, where we're kind of curious about our environment and our surroundings and the universe and what is out there. But I think it kind of depends on your worldview because to me, I would say that it's not uninteresting if Earth is kind of the pinnacle of creation, so to speak. So if there's a God who created the whole universe and the universe is expanding in exactly a certain way to create life at this exact certain time on this exact certain planet, to have people who play out this story that has kind of ultimate eternal significance. I think it's kind of the other way around. Like humans are the ultimate interesting thing, and how we live our lives is the ultimate interesting thing. And exploring space and our planet is kind of exploring God as the creator and how creative he is and how he made everything for our enjoyment and so that we could just stand in awe of how small we are and how big and awesome he is.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an amazing universe, and it seems like we should find out more about it. Like it would be like getting a Christmas present and not opening it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And I think, going back to my comment about money, it's kind of easy to say that now that we know as much as we know. But if there hadn't been those initial people exploring space, we'd be looking at the moon and being like, huh. And so there's probably more value in it than I'm aware of just because we have the information that we have. Like looking at pictures that were taken by the 1970s probes and stuff are just fascinating. And it would be awesome to have more of that. I just think it's hard to balance with like human needs, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, the same token, the world seems better fed today and better cared for today than it has been in many different periods before.
That's fair. And the space engineer families need to eat too. So, you know.
That's true. That's true. But every musician needs to entertain an audience of some type. So
Right.
it's like we don't have just people beating on drums for the heck of it. They need to they need to inspire people somehow, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, you kind of see this with other institutions too, but it's difficult for the older generations to kind of adapt to the way that the younger generations receive information. And I think there's probably a gap there with inspiring younger. Like I don't even know if my kids know what NASA is. Um, but I remember growing up, all we heard about was NASA and the moon landing and the this and the that. And now you have people claiming the moon landing wasn't even real. So, I think there's probably some work to be done there.
It's true. Oh, it seems like creativity and the willingness to explore is something that, like our traditional educational system, our public educational system, has a way of kind of beating out of people. And I was just wondering, I find your kids to be extremely creative and love exploring. And I was just wondering, what are some tips and tricks that you do to both kind of encourage that and still sort of maintain order and discipline?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we keep bookwork to kind of a minimum, not so much. as a strategy, but just because they don't like it. So we try to, get them math, get them ELA, get them reading, and then kind of leave a lot of the rest of it open for them to use their time and energy in a way that is interesting to them. I think this would probably be true even if we use the public school system, but when I was growing up, my mom, and because of our grandma, it was like you were on the swim team, you were on you did piano, and those were like the two good activities that you could do. And so I grew up and I was on the swim team and I was playing piano, and I was so bad at both of them. It was really painful. They even had my own separate lane for my own separate workout because of how bad I was at swimming. And I took piano lessons for a million years and just so bad at it. And so one of the philosophies I've tried to have walking away from that is paying attention to like what are they interested in and how can I support that in them. So, you know, I saw a meme about this a while ago, but it was like, do you just want to give your kids math lessons because they're bad at math, or tennis lessons because they're good at tennis? And obviously, you need to have kind of a basic ability to do reading, writing, and math. But then beyond that, I would rather do lessons for the thing that they're good at. And I think you did this with your kids as well. But kind of that idea of like, how do you find out what lights their fire and how do you pour into that? And that's what I want to do as a parent, because I think that's ultimately what makes super successful people, and success measured by excitement to be alive, right? And purpose and meaning. And I think because the public school system has kids, like they kind of have to have a factory approach in order to function. And I don't know if there's a way to do both. I don't know if you can inspire the kind of passion and excitement and whatever if you have such a lengthy day that is so systematized. And I think one of the things that has been bad for the public education system is that the number of administrators and the amount of money being spent on administration has skyrocketed, and teachers are being paid the same. And then you see schools consolidating. And so you don't have little neighborhood schools anymore. You don't have the same kind of locus of control. You don't have the same input. And I think as schools get bigger, they become more industrialized and they become less specific to the student, right? And you always hear small class sizes, small this, small that. I mean, homeschooling is the ultimate small class size. And so I think they all correlate to each other. The bigger the school, the less personal it is, the more systematized it is, and the less you're going to be able to find out what lights your fire and pursue it. Some people do very well. I think you are always going to have that top 5-10% that just loves their experience, does super well, is very successful. And um, my second kid is like that. He would have done great in public school. Um, but he's also going to graduate with his associates in the fall of his senior year.
Wow.
Yeah, in computer information systems. And he loves it, and he spends all of his free time coding. And so we're like, well, let's do college now. Like, let's get you some credentials so that you can go do the thing that you love and want to do. And so you also get like less stuck in high school. I think sometimes high school, especially the last 2 years, you just kind of feel like it's a waste of time. Like, what am I doing? And, but with homeschooling, you can go out and start college, or you can go out and start vocational school. And yeah, I think it all plays into like size, time, system, how systematized something is. And, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of it comes back to time.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And there's another aspect of it too. I went to a fairly small school, 87 people in my graduating class. And, we had art, band, all the different debate club, math club, and stuff like that. And my oldest son, he went to a school, I think it had like 3,000, 4,000 people in it.
Wow.
And so, they also had like band and everything, but the thing about his school was you had to be like a band person. Like you couldn't do
Yep.
anything else
Yep.
because they're like, if you're not willing to commit, there's a person behind you that wants in that school.
Yes. And there's
Whereas,
so competition in those environments. I mean, we're even seeing that, like, we're not a sports family, and my fourth is really into sports and soccer, but we started late. And so you have all these kids that have been playing soccer since they were 3. Travel sports is really big right now. And so trying to get him on a team so that he can just play,
Hmm.
there's kind of this lack of being able to dabble once you're past the age of 10, that is difficult, even younger, 8, when you have highly competitive environments.
And high school is a perfect time to dabble. It's a shame
Yeah.
to take that away.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah,
But well, would you take a trip to space if you could?
that's a good question. My first thought is like, well, how long?
I don't know, a couple of days, just like
Yeah,
in orbit.
yeah, I think so. If it was safe, if I could guarantee that my submersible wouldn't explode in the depths of the trench, or yeah, not explode on impact, or back into, do like the Challenger thing, or what was that submersible called that exploded?
I know which one's like Ocean Gate or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that one. Yeah. If it wasn't going to be one of those situations, yeah. Like if you could guarantee safety, absolutely.
Well, I mean, how about safety was the same impression as maybe air travel? You
Yes.
saw millions of people doing it, but
Yes.
occasionally you had something.
Well, I mean, you have car accidents that are more common, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are
They're,
more accepting of car accidents because they feel like they're more in control. Like,
yeah. And they're not always lethal, I think, is the other thing.
mm.
But plane crashes are always lethal, pretty much.
Do you think you'll get a chance in your lifetime that it'll get cheap enough and reliable enough?
I feel skeptical, but I was just talking to my kids about how when I was in middle school, the internet was just becoming a thing, and how there's even technology like VR. My son just got a VR headset, my 9-year-old, for Christmas. Nathan too got the VR headset for Christmas. And I was doing for the first time I used it last night, and it was this like kickboxing, the cardio exercise. It was the coolest workout I've ever done in my life. And that wasn't a thing a couple years ago. So it's so hard. Like there's been technology that's been developed in his lifetime as a 9-year-old that didn't exist but
As
previous,
a
right? And so it's so hard to say because I didn't think we'd be walking around with calculators in our pockets either. And here we are doing FaceTime on a handheld computer that I can't even leave for 5 minutes without somebody being like, why didn't you answer your phone? Right. So I don't know, like maybe I feel skeptical, but I'm willing to be wrong on that. Yeah. I think it'll be pretty expensive, like a safari in Africa kind of situation. Um,
Yeah, it makes sense. Like a once in a lifetime type event
yeah.
that you save up for, and you're like, I'm gonna do it.
Right. Well, I mean, even just the fuel alone. I mean, you have to have the renewable pieces, I think, for it to be economical, but then also like how much fuel are you spending?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Funny that you talk about people, not you personally, but talk about, concerns about environment, and then you watch the starships, launching 5 at a time. It's like, okay. Or the people in their private jets preaching about the environment. That's my personal favorite. And they all fly by private jet to the global environmental conference.
Sure. Yeah,
Hmm.
where they spend all this energy keeping this huge facility climate controlled and
Yes.
uh, all
Yeah.
this.
Hmm. Yeah. Or all the government buildings that are kept empty,
Mm.
but use all kinds of resources, and all the people work remotely, but they still maintain them. There's so much waste, right? And then they're like, use your low flow shower head. Yeah, no. I'll I'll take my low efficiency washing machine. Thank you.
Well, Deborah, that's pretty much all the questions I had for you. Did you have any questions for me or anything else you thought would be good to add?
I don't think so. It's been really good talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. This is my second to last interview, so
Oh wow. I just squeezed in at the end.
yeah, I know. I was like, you reached out yesterday. I was like, I had always thought about like reaching out to you on one of those days I couldn't find you to the interview, and then the days just kind of thing, but I'm
Yeah,
glad we were able to make today work.
that's how time is. Yeah, me too. And happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take
All right,
care.
bye.
Bye.